Imagine waking up one ordinary morning, believing your marriage is stronger than ever, only to discover a hidden phone that completely changes the way you see the person you love. For 22 years, you believed Marcus Carter was the perfect husband, a devoted father, and the man who would never betray your trust. But when you open that secret phone, you find messages, photographs, and a name that should have never appeared. A woman from his past, a hidden family secret, and a truth that makes you question everything you thought you knew. Because sometimes, the biggest secrets are not hidden by strangers, they are hidden by the people standing closest to you. For 22 years, Danielle Carter believed she knew the man she married. She knew his favorite meal, the song that always made him smile, the way he touched her hand whenever he walked past her in the kitchen, and the promises he whispered on the night they exchanged vows. To everyone who knew them, Danielle and Marcus Carter were the couple who survived everything. They built a home from nothing, raised a beautiful daughter, and stood together through every difficult season life placed in front of them. But one ordinary afternoon, while cleaning out an old drawer in their bedroom, Danielle found something that would make her question every memory she had ever trusted. Hidden beneath old documents and forgotten belongings was a second phone, a phone Marcus had never mentioned, a phone that contained messages, pictures, and conversations with a woman Danielle had never heard of. And what she discovered inside that phone would reveal a truth that had been hidden from her for years. Before we go deeper into this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Danielle Carter was a 48-year-old woman living in Atlanta, Georgia. She was known by her friends as someone who always believed in the power of family. She grew up watching her mother hold their household together with patience and love, and Danielle carried those same values into her own marriage. She met Marcus Carter when she was 26 years old at a community event where neither of them expected their lives to change. Marcus was confident, hardworking, and charming. He had a way of making people feel important when he spoke to them. Danielle remembered the first conversation they had, because Marcus listened more than he talked. At that moment, she felt she had found someone different. Someone she could trust. Their early years were not easy. Marcus worked long hours repairing commercial equipment, while Danielle built a career as a school administrator. They saved money, rented a small apartment, and dreamed about the future they wanted to create. When their daughter Aaliyah Carter was born, Marcus promised Danielle that he would do everything possible to give their family a better life. And for many years, he kept that promise. Their home was filled with family dinners, birthday celebrations, holiday traditions, and moments that Danielle believed would last forever. As the years passed, Marcus became more successful. He opened his own repair company and became respected in his community. People admired him because he seemed like a man who had achieved success without forgetting where he came from. Danielle was proud of him. She often told her friends that one of the best decisions she ever made was choosing Marcus as her husband. But slowly, small changes began appearing. At first, Danielle ignored them because she believed every marriage went through different seasons. Marcus started spending more time away from home. He received more phone calls that he answered in private. He became protective of his personal belongings in a way Danielle had never seen before. When she asked questions, he always had reasonable explanations. The late nights were because of work. The private calls were because of clients. The distant behavior was because he was tired. Danielle wanted to believe him because she had spent more than 2 decades building a life with him. Accepting that something might be wrong meant accepting that the person she trusted most might not be who she thought he was. Then came the day everything changed. It was a Saturday morning, and Marcus had left early to attend a business meeting. Danielle decided to organize their bedroom closet. She was searching through old boxes when she found an envelope with documents she no longer needed. Underneath those papers was a small black phone wrapped inside a piece of cloth. At first, Danielle assumed it was an old device Marcus had forgotten about. But something felt strange. She knew Marcus had replaced his phone several months earlier, but she had never seen this one before. The phone was locked. Danielle stared at it for several minutes, debating whether she should even touch it. She knew searching through someone's private belongings was wrong. She had always believed trust was one of the foundations of marriage. But deep inside, another feeling was growing. A feeling she could not ignore. Why was this phone hidden? Why was it wrapped carefully and placed where nobody would find it? And why had Marcus never mentioned owning another phone? After trying a few possible passwords, Danielle entered a number she never expected to work. Marcus's birthday. The screen opened, and within seconds, Danielle saw a name saved in the contacts. Monica Reed. She did not recognize the name. Then she opened the messages. The first message she saw was dated almost 3 years earlier. It read, "Are you sure you're going to tell her the truth one day?" Danielle felt her hands become cold. She continued scrolling. There were hundreds of messages between Marcus and Monica. Conversations that stretched across years. Conversations filled with emotions, apologies, promises, and memories that Danielle had never been part of. But the most painful discovery was not just that Marcus knew another woman. It was the realization that Monica knew things about her husband that even Danielle did not know. Things about his fears. Things about his childhood. Things about his dreams. Things that made Danielle wonder how long she had been living beside a stranger. And then she found a picture that would change everything. Because standing beside Marcus was Monica, and between them was a little girl. A child Danielle had never seen before. A child who looked enough like Marcus to make her heart stop. Danielle had spent 22 years believing she knew every chapter of her husband's story, but she was about to discover that Marcus had written an entire chapter without her. For 18 years, Danielle Carter believed she understood the man she married. She knew his habits, his favorite meals, the way he smiled when he was hiding stress, and even the quiet moments when he needed space after a difficult day. To everyone around them, Danielle and Marcus Carter were the kind of couple people admired. They had built a comfortable life in Atlanta, raised their daughter Aaliyah Carter, and created memories that looked perfect from the outside. But after discovering the hidden phone inside Marcus's closet, Danielle realized that the life she knew might have been built on secrets. The phone was not just a device. It was a doorway into a part of Marcus's life that she had never seen. Danielle spent that night sitting alone in their bedroom, replaying every moment from their marriage. She remembered the late nights at work, the sudden business trips, and the times Marcus would step outside to answer calls. She had always defended him whenever someone questioned his behavior. She told herself, "Marcus is a hardworking man. He is building a future for our family." But the messages on that phone forced her to look at everything differently. The first thing Danielle noticed was that the phone contained years of conversations. It was not something Marcus had recently bought. It had been carefully hidden for a long time. There were photos, messages, and contacts saved under names she did not recognize. One name caught her attention: Monica Reed. Danielle stared at the screen for several minutes, trying to convince herself there had to be another explanation. Maybe Monica was a business partner. Maybe she was someone connected to Marcus's company. Maybe she was simply misunderstanding what she was seeing. But as she continued reading, Danielle felt her heart sink. The messages between Marcus and Monica were personal. They talked about memories Danielle had never heard of. They discussed places Marcus had supposedly never visited. They shared conversations that sounded like two people who had known each other for years. Danielle felt like she was reading someone else's life. The hardest part was not the possibility that Marcus had betrayed her. The hardest part was realizing that he had been able to hide an entire part of himself while looking her in the eyes every day. The next morning, Danielle acted differently. She did not scream. She did not accuse him. She simply watched. For the first time in years, she paid attention to the little details she had ignored. She noticed how quickly Marcus grabbed his main phone whenever it received a notification. She noticed how he became uncomfortable when she asked simple questions about his schedule. She noticed how his confidence disappeared whenever Monica's name appeared on the hidden phone. Danielle knew she needed answers, but she also knew she needed the truth. That afternoon, she called her closest friend, Monica Reed. But this Monica was not the same woman from the phone. Danielle had known Monica Reed for almost 15 years. She was a trusted friend, someone she had shared family celebrations with, someone who had been there during difficult moments. When Danielle mentioned the name from the phone, her friend became unusually quiet. That silence told Danielle something was wrong. "Danielle, are you sure about what you found?" Monica asked carefully. The question confused her. Why would her friend already understand the seriousness of that name? Danielle looked at the phone again and felt a new wave of fear. She realized this secret was bigger than she first imagined. The following days became a careful search for the truth. Danielle began putting pieces together from old memories. She remembered moments when Marcus had disappeared for hours and returned with explanations that never fully made sense. She remembered the strange phone calls, the unexplained expenses, the emotional distance that had slowly grown between them. For years, Danielle had blamed herself. She thought maybe marriage had simply changed. Maybe every couple went through seasons where they felt disconnected. But now she wondered if the distance had been created intentionally. Meanwhile, Marcus had no idea Danielle knew anything. He continued his normal routine. He went to work, attended meetings, and came home acting like everything was fine. But Danielle was no longer the same woman who trusted every word he said. She was searching for the one thing Marcus had tried hardest to protect: the truth. And what she discovered next would reveal that the hidden phone was only the beginning of a much deeper secret. Danielle Carter had spent almost 2 decades believing she knew every chapter of her husband's life. She knew about Marcus Carter's childhood struggles, the sacrifices he made to build his company, and the dreams they had shared when they were younger. She knew the man who stayed awake all night working on business plans. She knew the father who carried Aaliyah Carter on his shoulders when she was a little girl. She knew the husband who promised her that no matter how successful he became, he would never forget the woman who stood beside him before anyone knew his name. But the hidden phone changed the way Danielle looked at every memory. The pictures on that device, the conversations, and the name Monica Reed created a painful question that refused to leave her mind. How long had Marcus been living 2 different lives? Danielle did not sleep much after discovering the phone. She sat quietly in the darkness of their bedroom, listening to Marcus breathe beside her. The same man who had held her hand through difficult seasons was now someone she could no longer completely recognize. She wanted to wake him up. She wanted to demand answers. She wanted him to explain every message she had read. But something inside Danielle stopped her. After years of being the woman who believed first and questioned later, she decided that this time she needed facts. She needed the complete truth. The next morning, Marcus woke up and prepared for work like nothing had happened. "Good morning," he said casually. Danielle looked at him carefully. For years, she had looked at Marcus with love. That morning, she looked at him like someone trying to understand a mystery. "Good morning," she replied. Marcus smiled, grabbed his briefcase, kissed her forehead, and walked out. But Danielle noticed something. He did not look back. For years, Marcus always looked back before leaving. It was a small habit that Danielle loved. Even when he was rushing, he would turn around and give her one final smile. That morning, he walked away without hesitation. And somehow, that hurt more than the messages, because Danielle realized the man she loved had been comfortable hiding things from her. Later that day, Danielle returned to the hidden phone. She carefully went through every conversation. The more she read, the more confusing everything became. Monica Reed was not just a random person in Marcus's life. She was someone who knew personal details about him. She knew about his favorite places. She knew about his fears. She knew about moments that happened before Danielle ever met him. Danielle discovered messages that went back years. Years. That meant this was not a recent mistake. This was a secret Marcus had protected for a long time. But then Danielle found something that made her stop. A conversation between Marcus and Monica from several years earlier. The message was not romantic. It was about a child. Danielle stared at the screen, confused. She read the message again, then again. The words became heavier each time. Monica had written, "I still cannot believe we kept this from her for so long." Danielle felt her hands become cold. Who was her? And what exactly had they been hiding? For the first time, Danielle wondered if the betrayal was not only about another woman. Maybe there was something bigger, something connected to her own family. That evening, Danielle decided to speak with Aaliyah. Aaliyah had always been close to both her parents. She was intelligent, independent, and mature beyond her age. She had recently started building her own career and had always admired the relationship between her parents. When Danielle asked if she had ever heard the name Monica Reed before, Aaliyah became quiet. That reaction immediately caught Danielle's attention. "Aaliyah, why did you react like that?" Danielle asked. The young woman looked uncomfortable. "I don't know if I should say anything," she answered. Danielle felt a deep pain in her chest. "Say what?" Aaliyah looked down. "Mom, I thought you already knew." Those words changed everything. Danielle realized her daughter might have known something she did not. For a moment, she felt hurt, not only by Marcus, but by the possibility that the people closest to her had been protecting her from the truth. "Aaliyah, what are you talking about?" Her daughter took a deep breath. "Mom, a few years ago, I saw Dad meeting someone. I didn't think much about it because I trusted him. But later, I noticed he became nervous whenever that person was mentioned." Danielle listened carefully. Who was he meeting? Aaliyah hesitated. Monica Reed. The room became silent. Danielle felt as if the last piece of a puzzle had finally appeared. But instead of bringing peace, it created more questions. Why would her daughter know Monica? Why would Marcus hide their connection? And why did everyone seem to know pieces of the truth except her? That night, Danielle made a decision. She was going to meet Monica, not through a phone message, not through assumptions, face to face. The next afternoon, Danielle sat across from Monica Reed at a quiet coffee shop outside Atlanta. For several minutes, neither woman spoke. They simply looked at each other. Monica looked nervous. Danielle looked heartbroken. Finally, Danielle placed the hidden phone on the table. "I found this in my house," Danielle said. Monica's expression changed immediately. She knew. She knew exactly what it was. And that reaction answered one question Danielle had been carrying. This was real. Monica reached for the phone but stopped herself. "Danielle, there are things you need to know." Danielle looked at her. "Then tell me." Monica lowered her eyes. "I never wanted you to find out this way." Danielle felt tears forming. "Find out what?" Monica remained silent for a moment. Then she said something Danielle never expected. "Marcus did not tell you because he was afraid of losing you." Danielle shook her head. "Losing me? After hiding this from me for years?" Monica looked away. "It is not what you think." Those words frustrated Danielle, because she had heard them before. People always said, "It's not what you think," when the truth was too painful to explain. But Monica continued, "Marcus and I have a history, Danielle. A history from before you." Danielle froze. "Before me?" The words echoed in her mind. She had always believed Marcus's life started when they met. But now she realized there was a chapter he had never shared. A chapter that involved Monica. A chapter that could change everything Danielle believed about her marriage. Monica finally revealed the truth. Years before Marcus met Danielle, he had been involved with Monica. Their relationship ended badly. But there was one thing they never told anyone. Aaliyah. Danielle could barely breathe. She looked at Monica, trying to understand. "What are you saying?" Monica reached into her bag and placed a document on the table. "Danielle, before you judge Marcus, you need to understand why he kept this secret." Danielle looked at the document. Her hands shook as she opened it, and what she saw would completely change the way she looked at her family forever. Because the biggest secret hidden inside Marcus Carter's second phone was not about an affair. It was about a truth that had been buried for more than 20 years. Danielle Carter sat inside her car for almost 30 minutes after leaving the coffee shop. The document Monica Reed had placed in front of her was still sitting on the passenger seat, untouched. She had looked at it several times, but every time she tried to read the words again, her mind struggled to accept what she was seeing. For years, Danielle believed she was the center of Marcus Carter's world. She believed their marriage was built on honesty, loyalty, and a love that had survived every challenge. She believed that when Marcus looked at their daughter Aaliyah, he saw the same beautiful family they had created together. But now, she was holding proof that there were parts of Marcus's life she had never known. The truth was painful, because it was not a simple betrayal. It was a secret that reached back decades. A secret involving the people she loved the most. Danielle finally opened the document again. Her eyes moved slowly across the page. The words confirmed what she had been afraid to understand. Before Marcus met Danielle, he had a relationship with Monica Reed. They were young, they had dreams, they believed they would build a life together. But their relationship ended after Marcus made choices that changed everything. Monica became pregnant. And the child they had together was someone Danielle never expected. Someone she had known her entire life. Someone who had grown up calling her mom. Danielle's hands began shaking. She read the name again. Aaliyah Carter. For several minutes, Danielle could not move. The world around her felt silent. The daughter she raised, the child she carried through sickness and sleepless nights, the little girl whose first steps she celebrated, the young woman whose graduation she attended with tears in her eyes. Aaliyah was not biologically hers, but in Danielle's heart, that truth did not erase 22 years of motherhood. The pain came from somewhere else. Marcus had known. Marcus knew the truth from the beginning, and he allowed Danielle to build her entire life around a secret she never agreed to keep. That evening, Danielle returned home. The house looked exactly the same. The family photos were still hanging on the walls. The furniture was still arranged perfectly. Everything looked normal. But Danielle knew something had changed forever. When Marcus walked through the door, he immediately noticed something was different. Danielle was sitting in the living room. The hidden phone was placed on the table, and beside it was the document. Marcus stopped. For the first time in years, Danielle saw fear on his face. Not anger, not confusion, fear. Danielle. His voice became quiet. She looked at him. How long were you planning to keep this from me? Marcus slowly placed his keys down. He knew the moment he had always feared had arrived. I can explain. Danielle shook her head. That's what everyone says when they have been hiding something. Marcus sat down across from her. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Danielle asked the question she had been carrying since the beginning. Was Aaliyah ever going to know the truth? Marcus looked away. That silence hurt Danielle more than any answer could have. Because she realized Marcus had not just hidden something from her. He had hidden something from their daughter, too. I wanted to protect her, Marcus finally said. Danielle looked at him with disbelief. Protect her from what? Knowing who she is? Marcus lowered his head. I was afraid. Afraid of what? Marcus took a deep breath. Afraid that if she knew the truth, she would look at me differently. Danielle felt tears forming. Marcus, she deserved the truth. I deserved the truth. Marcus did not argue, because he knew she was right. He explained that after Monica gave birth to Aaliyah, their relationship had already fallen apart. They were young, confused, and struggling. Marcus admitted that he made mistakes and did not know how to handle the situation. When he met Danielle years later, he wanted a fresh start. But when Danielle became pregnant, Marcus made a decision. A decision that would affect everyone's lives. He chose not to tell her that the child she was raising was actually his daughter from his previous relationship. At first, he convinced himself it was temporary. He told himself he would explain when the time was right. But the years passed. Aaliyah grew older. Danielle became her mother in every way that mattered. And Marcus became trapped inside the secret he created. Danielle listened, but her heart was still broken. Because the hardest part was not the past. It was the years of choices afterward. Every birthday, every family photo, every celebration, Marcus had opportunities to tell the truth. And every time, he chose silence. Aaliyah arrived home later that evening and immediately sensed the tension. She looked between her parents. What's going on? Danielle looked at Marcus. For the first time, she realized this was no longer only her decision. Aaliyah deserved to hear the truth from both of them. Marcus stood slowly. Aaliyah, there is something you need to know. The young woman looked confused. The next words changed the relationship between all three of them forever. But what happened after the truth came out was something nobody expected. Because Aaliyah's reaction was not anger. It was something much deeper. She had questions. Questions that would force Marcus and Danielle to face every secret they had buried for years. And as the family searched for answers, they would discover that the hidden phone contained one more secret that even Marcus had forgotten about. A secret connected to the reason Monica Reed had kept quiet for so long. A secret that would reveal another side of the story. For the first time in 22 years, the Carter family sat in the same room without pretending everything was okay. The house that had once been filled with laughter, birthday celebrations, and memories now felt completely different. The same walls that had witnessed years of happiness were now holding a truth that nobody was prepared to face. Aaliyah Carter sat quietly on the sofa, staring at the floor. She had always believed she knew who she was. She knew her favorite memories, her childhood stories, and the people who raised her. She knew that Danielle Carter was the woman who stayed awake when she was sick, who packed her lunches before school, who attended every important event in her life. And she knew Marcus Carter was the man who taught her how to ride a bicycle, helped her prepare for interviews, and encouraged her dreams. But now, everything she thought she understood had been shaken. The words her father had just spoken kept replaying in her mind. Your mother and I wanted to protect you. But Aaliyah was struggling with one question. Protect her from what? The truth? Or the consequences of their choices? For several minutes, nobody spoke. Finally, Aaliyah looked at Marcus. How long have you known? Marcus lowered his eyes. That silence answered the question before he could. Aaliyah swallowed hard. All my life? Marcus slowly nodded. The pain on her face was something Danielle had never seen before. It was not anger, it was disappointment. Because Aaliyah realized the two people she trusted most had made the biggest decision about her life without allowing her to have a voice. I don't understand, Aaliyah whispered. How could you both know something this important about me and never tell me? Danielle immediately reached for her daughter's hand. Aaliyah, I need you to understand something. Nothing changes how much I love you. Aaliyah looked at her mother with tears in her eyes. I know you love me. Those words hurt Danielle because they showed that the problem was never love. The problem was honesty. Aaliyah continued. But my whole life, I thought I knew my story. The room became silent again. Marcus looked broken. For years, he had convinced himself that keeping the secret was an act of protection. But standing in front of his daughter, he realized the truth. He had not protected her from pain. He had only delayed it. The next morning, Aaliyah left the house early. She needed space. She drove through Atlanta without knowing exactly where she was going. She passed places filled with memories. The park where her father taught her to ride a bike. The restaurant where her family celebrated graduations. The neighborhood where she grew up. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. She wondered how many people knew. Did Monica know? Did other family members know? Had she been the only person living inside a story that was incomplete? Meanwhile, Danielle stayed home with Marcus. For the first time in years, they had no reason to pretend. Danielle asked questions she had been afraid to ask. When did you first find out I could not have children? Marcus looked surprised. What? Danielle looked at him. You knew, didn't you? Marcus became quiet, and Danielle immediately understood. There was another secret. Another piece of information that had been hidden from her. Marcus, tell me everything. He took a deep breath. Years earlier, after their marriage, Danielle had struggled with health issues that made pregnancy difficult. The doctors told them that having a biological child together would be unlikely. At that time, Marcus already knew Aaliyah existed. He had a choice. He could tell Danielle the truth. He could explain that he already had a daughter. But instead, he chose silence. He allowed Danielle to become Aaliyah's mother without knowing the entire story. Danielle sat there, realizing something painful. The love she gave Aaliyah was real. The bond they shared was real. But the foundation they built it on was a secret. Later that afternoon, Danielle received a message. It was from Monica. Can we talk again? Danielle stared at the phone. Part of her wanted to ignore it. Part of her wanted answers. She agreed to meet. This time, Monica did not come alone. She brought someone Danielle had never met before. A woman named Rachel Brooks. Rachel was a former close friend of Monica and Marcus from many years ago. Danielle immediately wondered why another person was involved. What does she have to do with this? Danielle asked. Monica looked nervous. Rachel knows what happened before you met Marcus. Danielle looked at Rachel. Then tell me. Rachel explained that years ago, Marcus and Monica had been struggling financially. Their relationship was already falling apart, and they were both making difficult decisions. But the biggest decision involved Aaliyah. When Monica gave birth, she was going through a difficult period in her life. She felt overwhelmed. Marcus was also struggling. They agreed that Marcus would take responsibility and raise Aaliyah. But years later, when Marcus met Danielle, everything changed. Rachel explained that Marcus was afraid Danielle would leave if she knew he already had a child. But there was another reason. A reason even Danielle had not discovered yet. Rachel revealed that Monica had once tried to tell Danielle the truth, but Marcus stopped her. Not because he wanted to hide an affair, but because he was afraid of losing the only family he had ever known. Danielle listened carefully. For the first time, she saw that Marcus's secret was not created from one single moment. It was built from years of fear, poor decisions, and avoiding difficult conversations. But understanding someone's reason did not erase the pain they caused. Danielle still had one question. Why was Monica still contacting you after all these years? Monica looked at her, and for the first time, she revealed something Marcus had never told Danielle. The phone wasn't only about Aaliyah. Danielle froze. What do you mean? Monica reached into her bag and removed another envelope. I found this with Marcus's old things years ago. Danielle stared at the envelope. What is inside? Monica looked emotional. Something Marcus never wanted you to see. Danielle slowly opened it. Inside was an old letter, a letter written by Marcus before he married Danielle. A letter explaining a decision he made decades ago. A decision that could change how Danielle viewed everything. Because the truth was not just about who Aaliyah's biological mother was, it was about why Marcus chose Danielle. And why, despite all his mistakes, he spent 22 years trying to build a life with her. But before Danielle could finish reading the letter, she noticed something strange. The handwriting was Marcus's, but the date was impossible. It was written only 3 years ago, meaning Marcus had been hiding another secret long after their marriage began. And this secret had nothing to do with the past. It was about something happening in the present, something Marcus had been dealing with alone, something that could explain why he created the second phone in the first place. For 22 years, Danielle Carter believed the hardest moments in her marriage were behind her. She believed every challenge they faced had only made them stronger. She believed the arguments, the financial struggles, the difficult seasons, and the sacrifices had all been part of building something meaningful. But after discovering the second phone, Danielle realized that the greatest challenge of her marriage was not something that happened between them. It was something Marcus Carter had carried alone, something he had hidden even after the truth about Aaliyah came out. The old letter from Marcus sat on Danielle's bedroom table for 2 days. She read it over and over again. Every time she reached the end, she found herself searching for something different, a sentence that would explain everything, a reason that would make the pain disappear. But there was no sentence that could erase 22 years of silence. The letter was dated 3 years earlier. That was the part Danielle could not understand. If Marcus had been carrying a secret from before they met, she could understand that fear and confusion might have played a role. But 3 years ago, they were already married for almost 2 decades. Aaliyah was already an adult. Their relationship had survived countless challenges, so why was Marcus still hiding something? Danielle needed answers, and this time she refused to accept half-truths. That evening, she placed the letter on the kitchen table beside the hidden phone. When Marcus came home, he immediately noticed the items waiting for him. His expression changed. He knew. There was no pretending anymore. "Where did you get that letter?" Marcus asked quietly. Danielle looked at him. "Does it matter?" Marcus stood still, because he knew exactly what she meant. The question was not where she found it. The question was why it existed. "Marcus, I need you to tell me everything." He slowly sat down. For the first time since Danielle discovered the phone, he looked exhausted. Not like a man trying to defend himself, like a man who had been carrying something heavy for too long. "I didn't want you to find out this way," he said. Danielle shook her head. "You always say that." Her voice cracked. "But somehow, I always find out everything the hardest way possible." Marcus looked down. The silence between them was painful. Finally, he began explaining. The secret on the letter was not another relationship. It was not another child. It was something connected to the reason he created the second phone. Years earlier, Marcus had started receiving messages from someone connected to his past. Someone who knew about decisions he had made before meeting Danielle. At first, he ignored them. He thought they were attempts to disturb his life. But the messages continued. Then came the threats. Not physical threats. Threats of exposure. Someone wanted Marcus to reveal something he had spent years trying to forget. Danielle listened carefully. Who was it? Marcus hesitated, and that hesitation worried her. "Marcus," he finally answered. "Someone who worked with me years ago. His name was Thomas Whitaker. Thomas was one of Marcus's former business partners when he was starting his company. Back then, Marcus was young, ambitious, and desperate to succeed. He trusted people too easily and made decisions without thinking about the consequences. Thomas knew Marcus's history. He knew about Monica, he knew about Aaliyah, and he knew about something else, a business decision that Marcus had never told Danielle about, a decision that could have destroyed everything they built. Meanwhile, Aaliyah was struggling with her own emotions. After learning the truth about her biological mother, she reached out to Monica. For the first time, she wanted to know the woman who had been part of her story, but absent from her life. They met at a quiet park in Atlanta. Aaliyah had imagined this moment many times. She imagined anger. She imagined tears. She imagined difficult conversations. But when she finally sat across from Monica, she realized something unexpected. Monica was not the villain she had created in her mind. She was simply a woman who had made mistakes. "I don't know what to call you," Aaliyah admitted. Monica looked down. "I understand." Aaliyah swallowed. "Why didn't you tell me?" Monica took a deep breath. "Because I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that after all these years you would hate me." Aaliyah looked away. The truth was complicated. She wanted someone to blame. But she also realized that her life was filled with love. Danielle had raised her. Marcus had been there. Her childhood memories were real. The secret changed her story. But it did not erase it. Back at home, Danielle continued searching through the hidden phone. She discovered more messages between Marcus and Thomas. The conversations revealed that Marcus had been meeting Thomas secretly for months. But the reason shocked her. Marcus had not been hiding another woman. He had been trying to protect his family. Years earlier, Thomas had made a business decision that nearly destroyed Marcus's company. Marcus took responsibility for the mistake because Thomas threatened to expose personal information about his past. Marcus believed protecting his family meant handling everything himself. But his decision created another problem. He became distant. He became secretive. And eventually, he created the hidden phone. Danielle finally understood something painful. Marcus had not been living a second life. He had been living a life filled with fear. But fear had still damaged their marriage. And that was something Danielle could not ignore. A few days later, Danielle, Marcus, and Aaliyah sat together again. This time, the conversation was different. There were no accusations, no hiding, only honesty. Danielle looked at Marcus. "I spent years believing trust was something you either had or didn't have." Marcus listened. "But now I understand, trust is something people protect every day." She paused. "And you stopped protecting it." Marcus nodded, because he knew she was right. Aaliyah reached for both their hands. "I don't want this family to fall apart because of secrets." Those words affected both of them. Because despite everything that happened, one truth remained. They were still a family. But before they could begin rebuilding, Danielle noticed one final message on the hidden phone. A message Marcus had never opened. A message from Thomas. The date was only 2 weeks earlier. The message said, "Marcus, she deserves to know the truth about what happened the night everything changed." Danielle looked at Marcus. "What night?" Marcus froze, and for the first time, Danielle realized the second phone had revealed another door. A door leading to a secret Marcus had never even told himself he was ready to face. Because whatever happened that night was the one thing Marcus had spent his entire life trying to forget. And now Danielle was determined to find out. For years, Marcus Carter had convinced himself that silence was the only way to protect the people he loved. He believed that some truths were too painful to reveal. He believed that if he carried the burden alone, his family could continue living peacefully. But Marcus failed to understand one thing. A secret does not disappear because it is hidden. It waits. And eventually it finds its way back into the light. After seeing the message from Thomas Whitaker, Danielle Carter could feel that the story she had uncovered was still incomplete. The hidden phone had revealed the truth about Aaliyah. It had revealed Marcus's connection to Monica. It had revealed years of conversations he kept away from her. But now there was something else. Something that happened only 3 years ago. Something Marcus had never mentioned. Danielle sat across from her husband that night, waiting for him to speak. The room was silent. The kind of silence that happens when two people know a conversation will change everything. "Marcus," Danielle said softly, "what happened that night?" Marcus stared at the floor. For a moment, Danielle thought he would avoid the question again. But then he finally spoke. 3 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life." Danielle listened carefully. Marcus explained that at the time, his company was facing serious financial problems. The business that everyone believed was successful was actually struggling behind the scenes. For years, Marcus had built a reputation as a man who always had everything under control. But the truth was different. The company was losing important contracts. Bills were increasing. Employees were depending on him. And Marcus was terrified of losing everything he had built, especially the life he created with Danielle and Aaliyah. During that difficult period, Thomas Whitaker appeared again. Thomas had once been Marcus's closest business partner. Years earlier, they had started a company together when they were young. They were ambitious. They believed they could change their lives. But success changed Thomas. While Marcus wanted to build something honest and lasting, Thomas became focused only on money. Eventually, their partnership ended. Marcus walked away. But Thomas never forgot. He believed Marcus had taken something from him, a business opportunity, a reputation, a future he thought belonged to him. Years later, when Marcus's company began struggling, Thomas returned. He offered help. At first, Marcus refused. He did not trust him. But after months of pressure and financial difficulties, Marcus made a decision he regretted. He accepted Thomas's help. And that decision created a problem that would follow him for years. Danielle listened as Marcus explained everything. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to blame him. And part of her still did. Because no matter the reason, Marcus had once again chosen secrecy. But she also saw something she had not seen before. Fear. Marcus was not the confident businessman everyone admired. He was a man who had been afraid of failing, afraid of losing his family, afraid of admitting he needed help. "Why didn't you tell me?" Danielle asked. Marcus looked at her. "Because I spent my whole life trying to be the man you believed I was." Danielle felt those words, because she realized Marcus had been trapped by his own image. Everyone saw him as strong, successful, unbreakable, but nobody saw the pressure he carried, not even her. The next morning, Danielle asked Marcus to contact Thomas. She wanted answers directly. Not through messages, not through hidden phones, not through old documents, face to face. Marcus agreed. They arranged a meeting at an office building outside Atlanta. When Thomas Whitaker walked into the room, Danielle immediately understood why Marcus had been afraid. Thomas was confident, calm, the type of person who believed he always had control. He looked at Marcus and smiled. "I knew eventually the truth would come out." Danielle looked at him. "What truth?" Thomas sat down. "The truth that Marcus has spent years hiding." Marcus immediately became tense, but Danielle stopped him. "No, let him talk." Thomas leaned back. He explained that 3 years earlier, Marcus had discovered something about him, something that could destroy Thomas's reputation. Marcus had found evidence that Thomas had been secretly manipulating company finances. But instead of exposing him immediately, Marcus tried to handle it quietly. He wanted to avoid a public scandal. He wanted to protect employees. He wanted to protect his company. But Thomas saw that kindness as weakness, and he used it against him. "He knew what I was doing," Thomas said. "Then why didn't he expose you?" Danielle asked. Thomas looked at Marcus. "Because Marcus Carter always thinks he can save everyone." Those words stayed with Danielle. Because they were true. Marcus had spent his entire life trying to carry everyone. His daughter, his wife, his employees, even people who hurt him. But in doing so, he destroyed the one thing he was trying to protect. Trust. After the meeting, Danielle and Marcus sat in silence inside the car. For once, neither of them knew what to say. Finally, Danielle spoke. "I understand why you were afraid." Marcus looked at her. "But I don't understand why you thought I wasn't strong enough to handle the truth." Marcus looked away, because he knew there was no good answer. Danielle continued, "You spent years protecting me from pain, but you never realized the secret itself was the pain." Those words affected Marcus deeply, because they were the truth he had avoided. Later that week, Aaliyah learned about Thomas. She was surprised that her father had been dealing with another hidden problem. She began to understand something important. Her father was not a perfect man. He had made mistakes, big mistakes, but he was also someone who had spent years trying to fix the damage those mistakes caused. Aaliyah told Marcus something he never expected. "Dad, I wish you had trusted us enough to tell us the truth." Marcus nodded. "I know, but I also know you're trying now." Those words meant more to him than she realized. Because for the first time in years, Marcus felt like he had a chance to rebuild. Not hide, not pretend, rebuild. But just when the family thought the worst was over, Danielle discovered something else. While reviewing the hidden phone one final time, she found a folder Marcus had never opened. Inside was a video recorded 6 months before. The file name was simple. For Danielle. Her heart began racing. Why would Marcus record a message for her? Why had he never shown her? Danielle pressed play, and what she heard changed everything. Because Marcus was not confessing another secret. He was preparing her for a future he was afraid to face. A future that would force Danielle to make the most difficult decision of her life. For years, Danielle Carter believed secrets were always meant to destroy people. After everything she had discovered about Marcus Carter, it was easy to understand why she felt that way. The hidden phone had exposed years of conversations she never knew existed. It revealed Monica Reed, a woman from Marcus's past. It revealed that Aaliyah Carter was connected to a story that had been hidden from her since birth. It revealed that Marcus had been fighting battles alone, making decisions without allowing the people who loved him to stand beside him. But there was one thing Danielle still did not understand. Why had Marcus created the second phone? Why keep a separate device if he was only trying to hide old mistakes? Why save messages, documents, and a video specifically meant for her? That question stayed in her mind as she sat alone in the bedroom holding the phone. The file was still open on the screen. For Danielle. 2 simple words. but they carried the weight of everything that had happened between them. Danielle stared at the phone. A part of her was afraid to press play, because she had spent weeks discovering painful truths. What if this was another secret? What if Marcus had hidden something even bigger? What if the life she thought she understood was still incomplete? But another part of her remembered something important. Before the secrets, before the hidden phone, before the pain, Marcus had been the man who stood beside her through some of the hardest moments of her life. He had held her hand when her mother passed away. He had stayed awake with her during difficult nights. He had celebrated her achievements like they were his own. The man who hurt her was also the man who loved her. And that was the hardest part. Because sometimes the people who cause the deepest pain are also the people who hold the most precious memories. Danielle finally pressed play. The video began with Marcus sitting alone in an empty office. He looked different, not like the confident businessman everyone knew. Not like the man who always appeared to have every answer. He looked tired, emotional, human. "Danielle," Marcus said in the recording, "if you are watching this, then I know you finally found the phone." Danielle immediately felt tears forming, because even in that moment, Marcus knew this day might come. "I don't know if I will ever have the courage to tell you everything myself," he continued. "And that is something I regret." Danielle watched silently. Marcus explained that he created the second phone 3 years earlier, not because he wanted to hide another relationship, but because he was afraid. He was afraid that his failures would change how his family saw him. He was afraid that Danielle would look at him differently if she knew how close he came to losing everything. But then he revealed something she never expected. The second phone was not created to hide his life. It was created to document it. Marcus had started recording everything because he wanted to leave behind the truth. The truth about his mistakes. The truth about his fears. The truth about the choices he made. He wanted Danielle and Aaliyah to know that even when he made the wrong decisions, his love for them was always real. Danielle covered her mouth as she watched, because for the first time, she saw Marcus not as the man who betrayed her trust. She saw him as the man who had been drowning quietly. The next morning, Danielle showed the video to Aaliyah. At first, Aaliyah did not want to watch. She was still processing everything. She still felt hurt. But when the video started, something changed. She saw her father differently. Marcus spoke directly to her. "Aaliyah, I need you to know something. Being your father was never about biology. It was about every moment I spent loving you." Aaliyah's eyes filled with tears, because despite everything, she knew that was true. Marcus continued, "I made mistakes because I was afraid of losing you, but I should have trusted you enough to know that the truth would not destroy our family." Those words affected Aaliyah deeply, because they were the words she had wanted to hear. Not excuses, not explanations, just honesty. Later that week, Danielle decided to visit Monica, not because she wanted answers this time, but because she wanted understanding. The relationship between the two women had changed. At the beginning, Danielle saw Monica as someone who represented everything that hurt her. But now she understood Monica was also part of a complicated story. They met at the same coffee shop where everything began. Danielle looked at Monica. "I spent a long time being angry at you." Monica nodded. "I understand. But I realize now that everyone in this story was carrying something." Monica looked emotional. "I never wanted to hurt you." Danielle believed her, because she finally understood something important. The truth does not always come from one person being completely good and another being completely bad. Sometimes, people make mistakes. Sometimes people are afraid. Sometimes, people choose silence when they should choose honesty. And sometimes those choices affect everyone around them. Meanwhile, Marcus made a decision that surprised everyone. He stepped away from his company temporarily. For years, his identity had been connected to success, money, achievement, being seen as someone who had everything together. But now he realized something. A successful life was not measured only by what you built. It was measured by who remained beside you when everything fell apart. Marcus began repairing relationships, not with expensive gifts, not with promises, with actions. He spent more time with Aaliyah. He apologized without defending himself. He listened. And for the first time in years, Danielle saw the man she married beginning to return. But healing was not easy. Trust that took years to break could not be repaired in days. There were still painful conversations, still difficult moments, still memories that hurt, but they were finally facing them together. One evening, Danielle was organizing the remaining files from the hidden phone when she discovered something strange. There was one final folder. It had no name, no date, no description. Inside was only one photograph. A photograph Danielle had never seen before. It showed Marcus standing outside a hospital years earlier. But he was not alone. Standing beside him was someone Danielle recognized immediately. Someone she thought was no longer part of their story. Someone whose appearance raised a question nobody expected. Because the photograph revealed that the night Marcus had been trying to forget was connected to something much bigger. Something involving a person from Danielle's own past. And as Danielle stared at the photograph, she realized the hidden phone had not revealed the end of the story. It had only brought them closer to the final truth. A truth that would force Danielle to look at her own memories differently. For the first time in weeks, Danielle Carter felt something she thought she had lost forever. Peace? Not complete peace. Not the kind of peace that comes when every problem is gone. But the kind of peace that comes when you finally stop running from the truth. The hidden phone had changed everything. At the beginning, Danielle thought it would destroy her marriage. She thought it would reveal a betrayal so painful that there would be no way back. But instead, the phone had uncovered something more complicated. It revealed mistakes, fear, regret, and years of choices made by people who were afraid to face the consequences. But as Danielle stared at the old photograph she found inside the unnamed folder, she realized there was still one question left unanswered. Why was Marcus Carter standing outside a hospital 3 years ago, and why did the person standing beside him look familiar? Danielle picked up the photograph again. She studied every detail. The hospital entrance, the date written on the back, Marcus's expression, and the woman standing beside him, a woman Danielle recognized. Her name was Angela Brooks. Angela was not a stranger. She was someone Danielle had known for almost 15 years, someone she considered a friend, someone who had been present during some of the most important moments of her life. Danielle felt her heart sink, because suddenly, the mystery was no longer only about Marcus. It was about her too. The next morning, Danielle confronted Marcus. She placed the photograph on the kitchen table. Marcus looked at it, and the color disappeared from his face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Danielle already knew the answer was going to hurt. "Who is Angela Brooks?" she asked. Marcus sat down slowly. He looked like a man who had been waiting for this moment. "Danielle." She shook her head. "Please don't protect me anymore." Those words affected him, because he finally understood that every time he tried to protect Danielle from pain, he was actually taking away her ability to choose. Marcus took a deep breath. "Angela helped me when I needed someone." Danielle looked confused. "Helped you with what?" Marcus explained that 3 years earlier, when his company was struggling and Thomas was pressuring him, he discovered something that changed everything. His health was failing. He had been experiencing serious symptoms but refused to tell anyone. He was afraid that Danielle would worry, afraid that Aaliyah would see him differently, afraid that people would stop seeing him as the strong man they depended on. Angela was a medical professional who helped him during that difficult period. She was the person who convinced him to get treatment. Afraid that hospital photograph was taken after one of his appointments. But Marcus admitted something else. He never told Danielle because he felt ashamed. Not because of Angela, because of himself. He had spent years being the person everyone leaned on. Admitting that he needed help felt impossible. Danielle listened quietly. This time, her pain was different. The previous secrets made her feel betrayed. This one made her feel hurt, because she realized Marcus had been suffering right beside her, and she never knew. Later that afternoon, Danielle met with Angela, not with anger, not with accusations, but with questions. They sat together in a quiet cafe. Angela looked nervous. "I know how this looks," Angela said. Danielle looked at her. "I don't want assumptions anymore. I want the truth." Angela nodded. She explained that Marcus contacted her because he did not want his family to know about his health problems. At first, she disagreed with keeping it secret. She told him Danielle deserved to know, but Marcus refused. He believed he could handle everything. Angela sighed. "He loved you deeply, Danielle." Those words surprised her. Angela continued. "But he had spent so many years trying to be the person everyone needed that he forgot he was allowed to be human." Danielle looked away, because that was exactly what she had been realizing. Marcus's biggest weakness was not that he did not love his family. It was that he loved them so much that he thought carrying every burden alone was the right thing to do. That evening, Danielle sat with Aaliyah. For the first time, she told her daughter everything. Not the painful details, not every mistake, but the truth about Marcus's struggles. Aaliyah became emotional. "I spent so much time being angry," she said. Danielle held her hand. "That is understandable. But now I realize Dad wasn't trying to hurt us." Danielle nodded. "No, but he did." Aaliyah looked at her mother. Danielle continued. "Love does not erase the damage caused by secrets." That was the lesson they were both learning. Love was important, but honesty was what allowed love to survive. A few days later, Marcus finally decided to tell the family the truth about his health. They gathered in the living room, the same room where so many painful conversations had happened. But this time, something was different. Marcus was not hiding. He was not explaining. He was simply being honest. "I spent my whole life believing my value came from what I could provide," Marcus said. "But I forgot that my family didn't need a perfect man." He looked at Danielle. They needed the real me. Danielle reached for his hand. Not because everything was suddenly fixed. Not because the pain disappeared. But because for the first time in years, Marcus was finally allowing them to stand beside him. Months passed. The Carter family began rebuilding. Slowly, carefully. There were still difficult days. There were still conversations about the past. There were still moments when Danielle remembered the pain of discovering the phone. But there were also new memories. Family dinners. Honest conversations. Small moments that reminded them why they fought to save their relationship. Then one evening, Danielle received a call. It was from someone she never expected. Thomas Whitaker. She almost ignored it, but something told her to answer. When she picked up, Thomas sounded different. Less confident. Less powerful, almost afraid. "Danielle," he said, "I need to tell you something about Marcus." Her heart immediately sank. "What now?" Thomas was silent for a moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Marcus didn't tell you the full story about the night at the hospital." Danielle froze. Because she thought they had finally reached the end, but Thomas's next words revealed something impossible. Something Marcus had hidden even from the people closest to him. Something connected to the reason he had been afraid all these years. And Danielle realized. The second phone still had one final secret. For weeks, Danielle Carter believed the hidden phone had already revealed the worst. She thought the secrets about Marcus Carter, Monica Reed, Aaliyah Carter, and Thomas Whitaker were the final pieces of a painful story. She thought she had finally reached the end of the questions that had haunted her. But one final message from Thomas changed everything. "Marcus didn't tell you the full story about the night at the hospital." Those words stayed in Danielle's mind. Because after everything they had been through, she thought Marcus had finally learned that honesty was the only way forward. But now she wondered, was there still something he was hiding? Something so painful that even after everything, he still could not say it? That night, Danielle sat quietly in the living room. The house was peaceful. A place that had once been filled with laughter now carried the memories of difficult conversations. On the table in front of her were the things that changed her life forever. The hidden phone, the old photographs, the letters, the documents. Pieces of a story she never expected to uncover. When Marcus walked into the room, he immediately noticed the expression on her face. He knew something had happened. "Danielle?" She looked at him. "Thomas called me." Marcus stopped. His silence told her everything. "What did he say?" Danielle picked up the hospital photograph. "He said you never told me the full truth about that night." Marcus sat down slowly. For a moment, he looked defeated. Not angry, not defensive. Just tired. "I was hoping you would never have to know." Danielle closed her eyes. Those words hurt, because they meant there was still another secret. "Marcus, after everything we've been through, you still thought hiding the truth was the answer?" He looked at her. "No." His voice became emotional. "I know now that it wasn't." Marcus finally told her the complete story. 3 years earlier, the night of the hospital visit was not just about his health. It was the night he received news that changed his entire view of life. Doctors had discovered a serious condition that required immediate attention. But that was not the only thing that happened. That same night, Marcus received a visit from someone unexpected. A young man named Jordan Ellis. Jordan was someone Marcus had never told Danielle about, because Jordan was connected to a decision Marcus made many years earlier. A decision involving a person from his past. Years before Marcus met Danielle, during the most difficult period of his life, He had made a mistake. A mistake that involved someone who needed help. Someone who disappeared from his life. Marcus had spent years believing there was nothing he could do to fix it. But 3 years ago, Jordan found him. Jordan was the son of Marcus's former friend. A friend who had passed away believing Marcus had abandoned him. The truth was different. Marcus had tried to help, but circumstances separated them, and Marcus carried the guilt for years. When Jordan arrived at the hospital that night, he did not come looking for money. He came looking for answers. He wanted to know why Marcus disappeared, why he was never there, why his father spent his final years believing Marcus betrayed him. Danielle listened carefully, and for the first time, she understood the weight Marcus had been carrying. The second phone was never just about secrets. It was about unfinished conversations, apologies that were never spoken, people Marcus felt he had failed, moments he wished he could change. Marcus had spent years trying to fix every mistake alone, but he never realized something important. Sometimes people do not need perfection. They need honesty. A few days later, Danielle asked to meet Jordan. She wanted to understand the final piece of the story. They met at a quiet park in Atlanta. Jordan was a young man, carrying years of unanswered questions. When he saw Marcus and Danielle approaching, he looked uncertain. But as the conversation continued, something changed. Jordan realized Marcus was not the person he imagined. He was not someone who abandoned his father. He was someone who made mistakes. Someone who regretted them. Someone who wished he had done things differently. "I spent years angry at you," Jordan admitted. Marcus nodded. "You had every right." Jordan looked at him. "But I also spent years believing a story that wasn't complete." Those words touched Marcus. Because that was exactly what had happened to everyone. They had all been living with incomplete stories. Months later, the Carter family was different. Not perfect, but different. The secrets were gone. The hidden phones were gone. The fear was gone. Marcus learned to communicate instead of carrying every burden alone. Danielle learned that forgiveness did not mean forgetting the pain. It meant choosing not to let the pain control the future. Aaliyah learned that family was not defined only by biology. It was defined by love, sacrifice, and the people who showed up. Even Monica found peace. She accepted her place in Aaliyah's life without trying to rewrite the past. Everyone involved finally understood the same lesson. The truth can hurt. But living a lie hurts longer. 1 year later, the Carter family gathered for a special dinner. The same home that once held arguments and tears was now filled with laughter again. Danielle looked around the table. She saw Marcus. She saw Aaliyah. She saw a family that had survived something that could have destroyed them. Marcus reached for Danielle's hand. "I know I hurt you." Danielle smiled softly. "You did." He nodded. "And I know trust doesn't come back overnight." She squeezed his hand. "But you finally stopped hiding." Marcus smiled. And that was the thing Danielle valued most. Not that Marcus had never made mistakes, but that he finally chose the truth. Later that night, Danielle walked into the bedroom. The hidden phone was no longer there. The old letters were stored away. The photographs had become memories instead of mysteries. She looked at a picture of her family, and she realized something. Finding that phone had felt like the worst moment of her life. But sometimes the thing that breaks your heart is the same thing that reveals what needs to be healed. The second phone did not destroy her family. The secrets almost did, but the truth gave them a chance to rebuild. Because love without honesty can become fragile. But love with honesty can survive even the deepest wounds. And that was the final truth Danielle Carter discovered. The phone changed her life forever. But not because of what she found inside it. Because of what it forced her family to finally face.